Mexico has sued U.S. gun makers and distributors, arguing that they knowingly facilitated illegal arms trafficking through reckless business practices. And they say it's resulted in 17,000 deaths. They're now looking for over $10 billion in compensation. One of the examples they pointed to is a gun made by Colt that appears to be marketed to a Mexican audience because it's engraved with the face and name of a famous Mexican revolutionary leader. They also claim that since it's so difficult to legally purchase a gun in Mexico, that people mostly buy them from the US. So all this is interesting, because it makes you wonder if the Mexican government has a real argument there to be made. But on the other hand, the Mexican government is really bad at cracking down on crime and gangs, and their police is super corrupt, so it also kind of looks like they're trying to point the finger at someone else. Who in the world could explain this better than my friend and former US Army prosecutor, Glenn Kirschner? Glenn is an attorney and also a legal analyst for NBC and MSNBC, and he's got an awesome show on YouTube that you all have to check out called Justice Matters. Hey, Glenn, it is so great to see you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Hagar, thanks for having me.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. So listen, this Mexico story, without knowing all the evidence in their evidentiary, do these guys have a case? I mean, is this an argument they have that could hold in a court?
So let's start at 30,000 feet and then zoom in. So at the 30,000 foot level, when you think about the fact that the United States has always complained and been concerned about drugs flowing over our southern border from Mexico, now what do we have? Now we have the Mexican government in a situation that has some parallels, complaining about the flow of American guns over the southern border into Mexico being used with, really deadly results. So you can certainly understand the frustration of the Mexican government when so many guns being used against Mexican citizens are American manufactured guns. But then if we zoom in, the suit that the Mexican government has filed has a real uphill battle for multiple reasons. One, gun manufacturers in the United States enjoy a good bit of legal immunity from being sued when their guns are used to perpetrate violence. Now, Joe Biden has gone on record as saying he wants to see those legal protections repealed, but they are in place right now. And I think it's going to be hard for the Mexican government to get around that. The other thing, as I read up on the issue, there are what we call intervening causes, because here is the chain of events. You have American gun manufacturers legally making firearms. They then distribute it to licensed gun sellers. Those gun sellers may be inappropriately selling guns to what we call straw purchasers. It's a fancy term for somebody who purchases a gun but doesn't intend to use it, him or herself, then sells it to somebody who couldn't otherwise purchase it on their own. Those straw sellers will deliver massive numbers of guns to people who then unlawfully take them into Mexico. So it's really hard because there are so many potential breaks in the legal chain. It's really hard for the Mexican government to go all the way back to the manufacturers and sue them in a US court. So I'm not going to say the suit is impossible, but boy, does it have an uphill battle.
That's interesting. I mean, listen, the Mexican government does not have a good track record when it comes to cracking down on crime and gangs and homicide in its own country, obviously. Do you think that this is just a deflection? I mean, a way to point the finger at somebody else and to try and make a pretty buck at it at the same time? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Hagar, this feels to me like the Mexican government grappling with the intractable problem of gun violence in their country. Where have we heard that concern before? We are forever grappling with our intractable gun violence problem in the United States. What it feels like the Mexican government is trying to accomplish is really more public relations, maybe international relations, maybe policy with the US government than actually winning a legal suit in court, because they're trying to shed light. They're trying to, bring this issue to the fore so people will understand they have a massive gun violence problem. And the reality is about 70% of the guns that are used in violence in Mexico are being traced back to US manufacturers. So it feels like this is maybe the Mexican government using a lawsuit to really try to forward their political agenda more than anything else.
Wow. That's crazy. Glenn, thank you so much for this insight. Before we go, please tell us about your show, Justice Matters.
Well, thanks, Hagar. So I'm on YouTube, Justice Matters with Glenn Kirschner. I post a new video every day trying to talk about the legal issue of the day, sort of explain it, put it in context, and give people a larger picture so they understand and can use the information that hopefully I provide. They can also find me on Twitter. They can find me over on Patreon. So I'm kind of liberally spread across any number of social media platforms.
Amazing. Geeks, I highly recommend you follow Glenn Kirschner and subscribe to his show. It's like free legal advice. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Hagar.